Summer 1946. Paris. The Nazis are gone, but the scars remain. The city of light is dim. Bread is rationed. Coal is scarce. The streets are filled with American jeeps, returning prisoners of war, and a palpable sense of exhaustion. But at the Luxembourg Palace, the lights are burning bright. Delegates from 21 nations have gathered here for a massive diplomatic experiment. Their job? To clean up the mess left by Adolf Hitler. Germany and Japan were occupied and dealt with separately. But what about Hitler's friends, the minor Axis powers? Italy, Romania, Hungary, Bulgaria, and Finland. These 5 nations had marched with the Nazis. Now they waited in the hallway to hear their punishment. This conference was supposed to be a celebration of victory. It was supposed to prove that the United Nations could work. But from the moment the doors opened on July 29th, it was clear that the war hadn't really ended. It had just changed shape. The room was dominated by the Council of Foreign Ministers, the Big Four. For the Americans, James F. Byrnes, a sharp-tongued politician from South Carolina, growing increasingly suspicious of his wartime allies. For the British, Ernest Bevin, a tough former trade unionist who had no patience for communist rhetoric. For the French, Georges Badal, desperate to restore France's lost glory. And then there was the Soviet Union, Vyacheslav Molotov, Stalin's right-hand man. He was known as Stone Ass for his ability to sit through endless meetings without yielding an inch. He didn't come to Paris to make peace. He came to secure the borders of the new Soviet Empire. The conference quickly turned into a battlefield. The Luxembourg Palace was beautiful, gold leaf, red velvet, crystal chandeliers, but the mood inside was ugly. This was the first time the West and the East clashed publicly on a world stage. The biggest fight was over Trieste. It was a vital port city on the border of Italy and Yugoslavia. The West wanted it to remain Italian or independent. The Soviets wanted to give it to their ally, Marshal Tito of Yugoslavia. For weeks, Byrnes and Molotov shouted at each other across the table. It wasn't just about a city. It was about where the Iron Curtain would fall. Then there was the money. The Soviets demanded massive reparations. They wanted $100 million from Italy alone. They wanted to strip factories from Hungary and Romania and ship them to Moscow. The Americans were furious. They argued that stripping these countries would just make them starve and force the US to pay for their relief. Byrnes famously shouted, "We will not pay reparations to the Soviet Union." The minor Axis nations watched in horror. The Italians, led by Prime Minister Alcide de Gasperi, pleaded for leniency. They argued that they had overthrown Mussolini and joined the Allies in 1943. "They fought with you," they cried. Molotov didn't care. To him, Italy was a fascist aggressor that had invaded Russia. They had to pay. October 15, 1946. The exhausted delegates finally reach a conclusion. The treaties were harsh, cynical, and messy, but they were signed. Italy lost its African colonies. It lost the Dodecanese Islands to Greece. It lost Istria to Yugoslavia. And Trieste? It became a bizarre, free territory belonging to no one, a compromise that satisfied nobody. But the real loser was the idea of unity. The treaties confirmed what everyone already feared. Eastern Europe was gone. Romania, Hungary, and Bulgaria were firmly locked into the Soviet sphere of influence. The Paris Peace Conference of 1946 didn't prevent a war. In many ways, it declared a new one. When James Byrnes flew back to Washington, he knew the truth. The Grand Alliance that crushed Hitler was dead. The map of Europe had been redrawn in red ink and iron. The shooting had stopped, but the long, cold winter had just begun.